Hi, and welcome to Voices from Acudemy. I am Shameem Saidoo, your host, and with me, Yousouf Neetoo. For this edition of Voices from Acudemy, we are pleased to welcome Alex Bird, one of our many collaborators. Hi, Alex. It is our pleasure to have you for our podcast today.
Hi Shameem, hi Yousouf, pleasure to be here.
As we previously announced, each session will be covering topics in relation to adult education. For our podcast today, we'll be looking into marketing and lead generation world. Please, Alex, do you introduce yourself as a person and as a professional as well?
Yes, thanks Shameem. My name is Alex Bird. I work for a company called FindCourses Global. We're going to be predominantly talking about our UK operation today, but we do have a global reach. FindCourses.co.uk looks after training providers from all across the world. As the name implies, it's mainly UK training providers. We get about 250,000 members using our websites every month who are looking for training. And basically, our key sort of audience is coming predominantly from when they make a search via a website like Google. And what we're very good at is making sure that training providers that work with us are able to have their courses up front and center when someone's looking at that first point of interest.
We have now been collaborating with FindCourses for a while now. Let us have an overview background of FindCourses for our listeners. What are the type of services FindCourses actually provide?
Well, we look after a whole range of different services depending on what the client's needs are. You mentioned earlier that lead generation is part of that, but we consider ourselves to be a marketing service purely based on digital marketing. So making sure that our clients are very visible when a member is looking for a particular type of training. So as I said, that usually starts with the initial search when they go to a search engine like Google and typing in their inquiry. And obviously part of that requirement is making sure that those courses and training sessions are very visible to the training buyer when they initially go to make that inquiry. So what we want to try to make sure that all of our training providers have is visibility. It's very much about new business. Of course, a lot of time and money is spent on nurturing relationships when we're working within business, but having a new business channel is absolutely vital to any kind of business that wants to be a going concern as we move into these slightly uncertain times with COVID taking all of the headlines at the moment. So when you do have an opportunity to reach out and to engage with a training buyer, we want to try to make sure that we're giving you guys a voice, whether that be through engaging content, via video, via podcasts like this, webinars, whatever it might be. You need to make sure that you and your business are very visible at that initial search stage. So we are able to do that through a range of different techniques and tools. It's predominantly search engine optimization or SEO and organic ranking. So therefore, those key search terms that we put into Google when we're making an inquiry of any kind these days, any product or service, whether it's searching for a hotel or going on holiday or looking for a new car or searching for training, we use those key search terms when we're inputting them into Google or another search engine. So making sure that those search terms are used within the course title and in the description are extremely important when we're thinking about the type of work that we do at FindCourses. Therefore, it's having a collaboration with you as a training provider is important as well. We're not experts in the type of training that you deliver at Acudemy, but we are experts in digital marketing. So we're looking to have some kind of collaboration, a conversation, which ultimately will allow us to help you find training buyers when they're making that initial search and presenting them with content that's engaging so that they are then interested in finding out more, whether that's an information request that comes through to you as a lead or an email, or whether that's someone just reaching out to click through to your website directly, where they may then, of course, pick up the telephone speak to you directly. So it's capturing all of that information and tracking the user journey through a whole range of different tools and techniques. And then, of course, we also have a whole suite of services on top of that to help promote you as a business more fully, whether it's sponsoring particular areas or email campaigns to people who are interested to our member base. There's a lot that we can do, but it's ultimately dependent on what you as a business are looking to achieve, and what you also as a business are able to handle in terms of your sales support. We want to work closely with you to understand the best way to support all of our training buyers and training providers, so that we are engaging with everyone as best we can.
Hey Alex.
Hi Yousouf.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Who are the type of users that predominantly use FindCourses?
Well, it's a mixed bag. I think it's really dependent on the type of training that they're looking for. We look after all different types of training providers, whether they're health and safety providers, financial training providers, business and management, MBAs, executive MBAs. There's a whole range of different industries, but on the whole, it's mainly an older demographic. Normally, people who are company sponsored, i.e., their companies paying for their training, people who are looking to further their career or upskill within that environment. But we also do look after adult learning as well, and we have a number of sort of vocational courses and qualifications and certificates within the site as well. So we try to cover as many bases as we can. But on the whole, it's mainly UK based, and it's mainly older people who are working and are, as I said, the training is being paid for at the company level rather than self-funding. But we have everyone.
That's interesting. And how about apprenticeship? Because that is a big area of focus in the UK right now.
Yeah, very much so. And again, this kind of goes hand in hand with the reality of the current training situation and the pandemic that we're all going through. I think it's fair to say that while the pandemic has been going on in the UK, training has taken a little bit of a backseat. But of course now the companies that we work with are beginning to understand that furloughed staff, of course, can actively engage in training, and that isn't against furlough rules, and that they've been paying quite a large proportion of their yearly income into the Apprenticeship Levy Fund, and now looking to tap into that in order to make the most of upskilling their workforce. So we are seeing that as being a big increase in terms of the future. But I think it's fair to say as well that it is really quite a murky environment and quite difficult for companies to navigate, and we want to help them in that navigation so that we can shine a bit more of a light about what is available and how these apprenticeship levies can actually be really, really useful for companies to upskill their workforce.
Excellent. And in terms of course subjects, do you cover majority, or would you say everything and anything?
In terms of apprenticeship levy?
No, in general.
In general, no. Really, we feel that we have a duty of care to everyone. So while we want to look after our training providers, we also have a duty of care to our member base, people who are looking for courses. The strapline for the whole of the business, so FindCourses Global, is actually part of a larger group called Education's Media Group, based here in Stockholm in Sweden. And it's really to help everyone in the world to find the training that's relevant and suitable for them. So we have lots and lots of different training industries that we work with. As I said, we work with universities at undergraduate and postgraduate level. We have a website called searchmba.com, which looks after MBAs and executive MBAs. And then FindCourses Global really looks after the adult professional and training market. So that looks after everyone from bricklayers to dog walking classes to financial training to executive MBAs, everything in between with qualifications and certificates. It's really our purpose to try to help everyone, whatever they're looking for.
Therefore, Alex, the question will be, why should companies as well as individuals be using FindCourses?
Okay. Well, that's a pretty easy question to answer. Thanks, Shameem. I mean, the reality is that the companies that are using us use us because we have access to all of the key and top training providers globally as well as in the UK. So it gives them a good variety. It's not necessarily of their most important factor to find the cheapest type of training. They want to have the best quality training providers and have access to those training providers when they're looking to work and upskill their workforce. And so we feel it's important to make sure that we're looking after training providers in all different shapes and sizes, whether that's an individual tutor working on their own to some of these multinational global corporations who deliver training in each of the major continents around the world. So from a company perspective, it's a relatively easy purpose for them to come in contact with us. It also saves them a lot of time from an HR and L&D perspective. Rather than having to source these training providers themselves, they can come to us directly and ask us to help them find valid and relevant training providers, which of course we can then send them to shortlist and to reach out directly. From an individual's perspective, it's a little bit harder to define because, as I said, the modus operandi of our business is really to reach out to them when they're in that searching phase. And as with every product and service, as I mentioned earlier, most people typically go to a search engine like Google when they're looking to research any product or service these days. And so what we want to try to do is to make sure that when that individual is looking for relevant training, we try to make sure that we're giving them, in terms of the search results from Google's algorithm, the most relevant course to their search needs. And what we're really looking then for them to do is to engage in some kind of action. And if that content is not engaging or it's not relevant, then that individual is not necessarily going to click on one of our links to find out more. So we really spend a lot of time in making sure that everything that we do is going to be relevant to that individual, so that when they have a need, then we're presenting them with the correct type of training, so that they can then obviously reach out to you guys directly to find out more.
Alex, from a training provider's perspective, what do they gain from using FindCourses?
Well, they gain our expertise, of course, in a digital marketing perspective. So a lot of the training providers that we work with have marketing departments, but those marketing departments, of course, have to look after multiple channels, whether it be print media or looking after conferences or doing emailing. Our pure focus is digital. And it always has been for the last 12 plus years that we've been in operation. So it gives them a very good platform to really focus on getting in front of that digital audience. I think it's fair to say it's becoming more and more important these days to have a strong digital presence and a strong brand within that digital presence. So we can help support our training providers in that channel. It's also important to consider as well that as a platform, we're in a position to be able to do a lot of testing on behalf of our clients, which doesn't require having to get sign off to do it on their own website, for example, which of course can take have a lot of obstacles to getting in terms of red tape and being able to practice or trying new things. You can do that on FindCourses. We give you a lot of flexibility and a lot of different options that might suit your needs. So in terms of why training providers should use us, I mean, those are two key examples. Notwithstanding, of course, as I said, it's a new business channel. I think it's fair to say that new business as a reality is extremely important to all businesses, whatever they might be doing. And FindCourses helps training providers in particular tap into those opportunities when that person's in the researching mode. So it's really, as I said, about working together with our training providers to get the best out of the service. But having mutually agreed goals is obviously part of that, and understanding what you as a training provider are looking to achieve as a result of working with a company like FindCourses is paramount. We want to make sure that we're on the same page. So there are a whole range of different things, but certainly in terms of a marketing service, I would hope that's one of the key reasons that training providers work with us.
We all know that many businesses have taken a hit by the COVID-19. But do tell us how FindCourses adapted itself to overcome these adverse effects.
Yeah, thanks, Shameem. I mean, a lot of difficulties, especially in the early days with uncertainty. I think it's fair to say now, a few months into this that we're still not in a position with a lot of clarity. But what we were able to do very early is to accept that really we were all in this together. There was no point in trying to accept or demand that this is a business relationship. Our business model is very much based on long-term relationships with our clients. And we're not in a position to work with clients for a short period of time. And I think that's fair to say with Acudemy. We've worked together for a lot of years now. And it's something that we hope is going to continue for a long time in the future. So we made the decision very early on to accept that while we're a business, we are only a business because of the training providers that we work with, and that we wanted to support everyone that we worked with in order to make sure that everyone was still going to have a business in 6 months' time. So a lot of the things that we did hinged upon accepting all of those training providers who were able to transition into delivering digital and e-learning and virtual type courses, publishing those on our websites with no extra charge and getting those pushed through as quickly as possible. We also looked at doing a lot of outreach in terms of our own business model. Those are services that we typically charge for, and we made the decision that actually, under the circumstances, what we wanted to try to do was to help our members, the people who are searching for courses via FindCourses, and also introduce those members to the training providers that were in a position to actually help them deliver that training. So we did a lot of outreach in terms of emails, newsletters, content about the COVID pandemic and working from home. In fact, in terms of data, which is one of our real core strengths, it's about collating all of that information and looking at it from a big data perspective and understanding what sort of search terms people were looking for. And we saw very early on that there was a big shift away from sort of the core professional development courses that we typically deliver, whether they be in oil and gas or finance or business and management, towards more sort of reflective courses in terms of mental awareness and anxiety. So really those training providers like Acudemy who are able to deliver that type of training, we wanted to provide you with a platform to get to our members so that you could talk to them and help them in terms of delivery of training. So that was just the very early sort of things that we did. We're also very much under the sort of belief that agility is extremely important. So being agile and accepting that there are going to be lots of different channels at the moment. One of the core or the key changes that we saw was a move away from the traditional forms of classroom-based training to much more people looking for online and virtual types of courses. And so we wanted to make sure that our training providers who were able to transition into that space had a platform to be able to talk about that, and accepting that the future is probably going to be some form of hybridized version of that, whether it be classroom and virtual. So it's very much a sort of a volatile sort of situation at the moment with a lot of stuff happening, but we are starting now to see things starting to fall into place with training buyers coming back into the marketplace, people looking to engage with that apprenticeship levy, as Yousouf was talking about earlier, as well as those more sort of traditional types of classroom-based courses coming back to the scene. And some of our other training providers, of course, have actually committed already to having classroom training from July 10th onwards. So it is starting to open up quite quickly.
Alex, how's the traffic been to your site?
Traffic has actually been pretty static, so we're expecting it to be very different. But in fact, we only saw about a 4 or 5% drop off. We get about, as I said, about 250,000 members coming through our various websites every month. We saw about a 4 or 5% drop off in March, April, which was much less than we expected. I think it's fair to say that we've got a pretty, people who are furloughed, who are stuck at home, are very interested in understanding what their options are, whether it be upskilling or whether it, through necessity, might actually have to be changing careers. So we're seeing a lot of people finding that. And I think it's also fair to say that those people who are at home are looking to engage with this type of content. They're looking for uplifting stories and uplifting information. And so if we can provide them with some kind of vision for their own future, which might involve doing some training in order to move into a slightly different direction, that's something that I think is really important. So in terms of just raw numbers, it's stayed relatively static. over the whole period of time. And in fact, we're actually expecting those numbers to improve. There was a Google Core update back in May, and in fact, our numbers as a result of that Google update have actually improved. Again, I think because of relevancy and the ability for those people who are searching for online and virtual courses has gone up.
Alex, you do have a long experience, I would say, in the digital marketing business. Will you say that the COVID-19 turned the page on traditional training methods? And if so, what are the new trends businesses are moving to?
Yeah, well, I've been working within digital marketing now for about 10 years. And as a business, as I said, we've been working within specifically training and learning within digital marketing for about 15 as a whole business. So yeah, we do have a lot of experience in understanding how digital training at least can be delivered. And that's one of the key kind of changes that COVID has enforced on all of us. I've been in the game for long enough now to understand and remember when CD-ROMs were a thing, and training suites, and people having to engage and going for that. In fact, I think that was actually had a bit of a negative impact to sort of technology within training. I think a lot of companies and training providers invested a lot of money in that sort of process, the ability for people to buy CD-ROMs and whole training suites, which were never really engaged. Technology moved on very, very quickly. What COVID has done is forced everyone to accept that this kind of channel, the ability for people to engage with another person in a learning format, it is a real one that has to be accepted now, and it's forced all of us to make that change into digital much, much harder, as in a hard turn into digital than we were expecting. So the reality, I think, for us is that COVID has given us much more focus in terms of how training can be delivered. When we think about technology, we can see that it is clearly an option. And I've been really excited and interested to look at my own LinkedIn feed with all of the different training providers that I worked with. Those people who are delivering training globally. Training sessions being delivered in New York without the need for the trainers themselves having to travel and making all of those expenses and having to go to a hotel away from their family. So it's been fantastic to see. But I think it's also important to really accept that classroom-based courses, classroom is king, really. People enjoy being in a classroom with their peers and being able to learn in that kind of way. So our expectation is that it will make some kind of comeback as things become easier. But the reality is it's going to be some kind of hybridized version of classroom plus virtual, which will allow all of us, of course, to have a lot more options. So COVID, we have to look at it from a number of different kind of angles. And if we look at it from a positive perspective, we can see that it's actually opening up a lot more opportunities for training, for the people who are looking to engage with training, and for those training providers, of course. So hopefully it's some positivity that we can take from the whole experience.
Alex, in terms of FindCourses, are you guys working remotely or are you guys working from home?
Yeah, so in terms of FindCourses, well, we're based in our global headquarters, as I mentioned earlier, are based in Stockholm in Sweden. We've had a very different kind of COVID experience. I think it's fair to say for the majority of the global population, even. So we have never been locked down. And so the company as a whole has suggested to all employees to not use public transport to come into the office. So I personally have not. I typically commute into the office every day, and I've been working from home remotely since, well, February, March time, so many months now. And I'm in the same sort of position as a number of my other colleagues. But those colleagues of mine who are close bike ride into the office have been going into the office as usual. So we've seen a bit of a change. Personally, for me, the change in commuting has been the only key change for myself, working from home. In fact, back in my previous life when I was living in the UK, when I was working in financial services, I worked from home a lot then as well. So it's not been a massive change to my daily working environment. The only big difference is that I've got two small children, which have meant It's been impossible to work from home. So I've been stuck in a little cabin by a lake, which has been beautiful for everyone, for myself and for my Zoom meetings to have a look over my shoulder. But in terms of effective working, I think that's again an interesting reality that we're all going to be facing, is that we're all pretty comfortable working from home, and I expect that's probably going to continue once the pandemic has hopefully died down.
What will be new or upcoming projects for FindCourses to look out for, Alex?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, we very much believe in being agile and looking and sourcing everything that we do. We've always considered ourselves to be at the forefront of content and engaging content for the L&D market. Things that we're looking to try and do at the moment, I mentioned earlier prior to this podcast that we in-house have converted one of our conferencing rooms to a pure editing suite. And that editing suite is going to be designed to produce content on behalf of our training providers, whether it be video content or broadcast content. It's going to be a really exciting sort of channel for us as a business to actually give all of our training providers a more expert platform to actually produce content, which can be then engaged with and delivered digitally. And so that's one of the big changes that's just happened as a result of the pandemic.
Well, that's all for today's episode of Voices from Acudemy. Thank you for listening. Alex, thank you for joining in today.
Thank you for inviting me, Shameem, and thank you, Yousouf.
Thanks, Alex.
Please stay tuned for our new upcoming podcast with a new guest to be discussing topics around training. Make sure you do visit us at acudemy.com and sign in to our mailing list. Thank you from your hosts, Shameem and Yousouf. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.